like to start off asking you guys a question. I like to ask people on dates instead of asking people for their zodiac sign because I feel like that can be really cringy. And I love asking this question because I feel like you can learn a lot about a person based off their answer, and that is, who is your Batman? The guy's been around like 80 years. I feel like we all have a Batman that's defined a part of our lives. So briefly tell us who your Batman is. And Rob, I'd love to start with you because I'm jealous of the kids coming up now that get to experience you as their first Batman.
You actually asked that on dates.
I do. Who's your Batman? I need to know.
Really unusual.
That's a legit question. I need to know if it's clean. I need to know if it's
Oh, right. I thought you meant like
I was thinking Maradona. I was going to go Maradona. I was trying to figure out how I was going to make any sense.
I mean, I weirdly got to try on every single Batman outfit for my screen test to see actually which Batman I was.
Not Adam West.
Apart from Adam West.
Yeah, I was just making sure. That was great visual.
That's a great one.
My head was the only person who had a large enough head for me to fit into the cowl was Clooney, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Everyone else, I did not realise that everyone else has quite small heads. And, but I didn't fit into the system. It's not really what you're asking.
No, this is fascinating.
But when I got into so because you could judge it, the most important thing was the cowl. I could only fit into Clooney's cowl, but then his suit I could not fit into. And so I kind of had like a very vulnerable midsection, kind of groin area.
You're saying Clooney was tight in the groin?
No, it's just I think he's a little bit
Big in the head, tight in the groin.
Yeah, I thought Clooney was really tall. Like, I mean,
Like 6'1" or something.
yeah, and I
Clooney hates you right now. And that's the suit that has the nipples on it, right?
It does,
Yeah.
I swear a couple of them had nipples. I think one of them had like one nipple. So, like,
Pierced.
This is my Batman.
Yeah.
No, I remember being a kid and seeing the Tim Burton film, and when Bruce Wayne's parents get killed, like, it was awful to watch as a kid. It's like, I think it's every kid's fear, right? It's like they're losing their parents. So I love that film. So I guess Michael Keaton was my first Batman.
What about you, John?
Oh, it's Adam West. 100%. Yeah, see, your question, I think, just dates your date. You're just going after the age. Because, I mean, I was, like, 7, 8 years old, and it was after school. It was Batman. It was Speed Racer, Ultraman, a little Gilligan's Island thrown in, but the Batman was Adam West. And, it was just, Matt and I talked about it a bit because, we look at it now and it's kind of camp and it's, the pastels and all of that. But when you're a kid, right, that was serious. It was serious business. It was serious, like, heroism. And it was cool. It was modern.
yeah, I remember because it was replayed on English TV.
Yeah.
I used to watch it all the time, and I never thought. I mean, I didn't know what the difference was. I thought it was a really serious show.
Yeah. And the performances are just, Cesar Romero, River Kit, and Burgess Meredith, and all. I mean, just like, it was just brilliant stuff for a kid. So yeah, I used to make a little bat cave on the sofa and like kind of, do the whole thing. And I was well into it. But Adam West, 100%. Tells you how old I am.
Ha! That show still holds up too. Zoe, who's yours?
Rob's my Batman.
gotta
My
be.
Batman.
Yeah.
Will you be my Batman? Sounds like Valentine.
Get you. So yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And Colin, who was yours?
Two. Jeffries, Adam West, and also Paris and Tim Burton. So I double dip. Yeah, when I was a child, pre-10, just go home from school and watch Adam West in his version, and then, which wasn't camp at all. Of course it wasn't. It was life or death, and it was intriguing. And I mean, they circle each other every episode. The Riddler, Penguin, Joker, Catwoman, and I watched it recently with my son, and it's extraordinary how often they all bump into each other in broad daylight. And so looking back in that way, it's kind of ridiculous, but it was wonderful at the time, and it's still really enjoyable. Then Tim Burton, when I was beginning to feel, I suppose, the recognition of certain anxieties and discomforts as a young man, like 13 or 14 or 15, then I related to the world that Tim Burton, Michael Keaton's Batman, and his kind of beautiful kind of awkwardness, which, even though he was awkward, of course he had a confidence. So it was kind of almost like, wow, you can be awkward in yourself and rub up against the world with awkwardness, and yet you can have an inner strength. That's an interesting concept to hold as a young man, or a boy becoming a man.
It's so beautifully said, and he means so much to us in like so many different ways, which is what I love. I think you were right about dating too, because mine was Kevin Conroy, Batman the Animated Series. I'm a 90s kid, and That's the action figure I had. And Rob, I was actually watching an interview you did years ago where you said that you were looking at a Batman action figure and you couldn't wrap your head around the fact that you were Batman. So I wanted to know, when was the first moment you truly felt like Batman? Was it when you put on the suit, when you got in the car, first fight scene?
I mean, there's two different versions. There's one version where you kind of feel like Batman, and then there's another kind of realization where you realize you actually are playing him. And I think, like, even when I look at the poster in the back room here, I still can't really understand that it's even happening. Like, but there were definitely moments where you're kind of, you put on the suit. Actually, to be honest, it was on the camera test, and when we did, it was the first time I had the full suit on. And people start kind of behaving differently around you, which has such a kind of totemic power, and like the crew looked a little bit scared. I mean, there's something, it's really weird. If you don't say anything, you're just standing there, people get freaked out by it. So yeah, probably on the camera test thing.
Yeah, people are stoked on this suit, man. The way it catches light, the way it accentuates like your enviable jawline. And it feels like it has a lot of movability, which I think will lend itself to some really cool fights. I wanted to ask you about Bruce Wayne because Darwin Cook has a Batman comic called Batman Ego, which to me is just fascinating because he separates Batman and Bruce Wayne. And they have a conversation with each other about what it is they actually do, which I think is so interesting because it's in the same way where we all struggle with our own egos on a daily basis. So Rob, did you approach Bruce Wayne and Batman as two separate people?
Kind of. I mean, I love that comic, and there are quite a few of them when Bruce is kind of having a bit of an existential crisis, and even the way he becomes Batman, when literally a bat smashes through the window and he's like, oh, I'm going to be a bat. And like, I mean, it's not really a normal kind of guy. And I got really obsessed with thinking that there's an element of like mysticism in it as well, and kind of how much power he kind of imbues into the suit. I mean, he really thinks when he puts on the suit, he's no longer Bruce. It's not, because in other times of the story, they kind of really successfully kind of rationalize why he's wearing the suit, and it's to scare superstitious criminals and stuff. And I think in this one, what I got from Ego and from quite a few other comics is he believes it. When he believes it, he puts on the suit, he disappears. And I thought it was interesting to kind of think that Bruce feels, as himself, impotent to help anybody and avenge his parents. He needs to completely embrace his alter ego. And so now telling you the story, like, Bruce hasn't really got control of his persona as Bruce yet. Like, he's a recluse. Like, he's a recluse, and he's not the kind of playboy that we've seen in other times of the story. Like, he's a freak. He's not necessarily a freak. He just doesn't really go out that much.
He's also dressing up as a
He's dressing as a bat, but he wants to be Batman the whole time, which is kind of, a lot of the comics are about that. But it's kind of, he thinks that Batman is his true self, but in this it kind of alludes to it a lot more than usual. He doesn't want to do anything else. And that's quite interesting.
It is interesting.
It's struggling and hasn't quite made sense in the way that a lot of other tellings. There's like almost too much clarity in like why I'm doing what I do. And I get from you and from the film that you think you maybe know why you're doing what you're doing, but actually you're too much in the thick of that struggle that it will be revealed.
It's almost like, I mean, I could talk about all day whether or not Bruce Wayne is the actual mask here, but someone who understands Batman, I think, very intimately is Catwoman, played by you, Zoe. And this is an origin story for Selina, which I think is very exciting for all of us as fans. Who does Selina Kyle want to be? And like, what is it that she understands about Batman?
What does she want to be? I mean, in this story, I don't really know if that's what she's thinking about. You know, I think she really wants to be free from her past, I think, in the story. You know, I think she's trying to liberate herself from a lot of trauma and a lot of pain. And, you know, the Catwoman that we know and love, who's really able to relish and enjoy the chaos, she's not quite there yet, you know? So it's a really interesting place to meet her. And I think she really is struck by the connection she has with Batman, because I think both of them are people who never feel seen or connect to anybody. And I think it's a little scary to meet someone who affects you the way we affect each other.
Yeah, there's definitely a vibe there.
There's definitely a vibe there.
Yeah,
Or I could have just said that.
Yeah. I have a thing for strays. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that was a last minute ad,
Oh,
too.
it's fantastic. It's so beautiful. Really, it's very romantic and heartfelt.
I think you also see like a young woman like fighting for her life
Exactly.
in a messed up city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's good.
Yeah, it's
like that.
I think refreshing to not romanticize the character too much, where she's again, just having a great time being mischievous. I think she really is a woman trying to survive, and that's something we don't see a lot in these films.
Yeah, Paul, I love that you brought that up too, because Zoe, I was reading an interview you did where you said Batman's like the masculine and Catwoman is like the feminine. And I don't want to speak for all women, but personally, sometimes I feel like we have to lead with our masculine so much, especially in the workplace. So I wanted to ask you, like, how did you get in touch with your feminine for this role? It's a very vulnerable place to be.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's interesting, like the idea of being in your power, right? And I think a lot of us associate power with masculinity. And so oftentimes, as a woman, when you want to feel powerful, I think we can imitate masculine power. And so I really wanted to allow myself to be soft and to take my time and to trust that she's a badass without having to lead with any kind of bravado.
Yeah. Oh, love it. I can't wait to see your Catwoman. Really, I can't wait to see all your characters because they're all unlike any of the versions we've seen in the previous live actions, especially Jim Gordon Jeffrey. I think what makes me so stoked about this film is it's a detective story, and I feel like we've just all been craving that from Batman. And it feels like Gordon and Batman are like partners in this one. So what excited you about bringing this version of Jim Gordon to life, and how did that detective story and angle influence your portrayal of him?
Well, it's very much a throwback in that way. So it's a throwback to, it's not an origin story of Batman, but in some ways it's kind of an origin story of the series, in that it begins in Detective Comics. It's about mysteries and crime solving. He's the world's greatest detective, and so we really focus on that, and it gives Gordon an opportunity to really be in the middle of things. He's still Lieutenant Gordon, not Commissioner, so he's on the street. And so much of what I do is informed by what Rob does. So people ask, how is this different than It's different than working with Rob, we're all working together, within Matt's vision and James Chinlin's vision of Gotham and Nick Fraser's lighting. That's what's different about what I've done with this. Because I've said it before, but Gary Oldman is one of the most influential actors that's out there for me personally.
Wow.
I saw Sid and Nancy, and it just blew my head over to the possibility that we were able to do in terms of freedom and intensity, and it just opened my head up. So I have massive respect for the actors who come before and play this role. Like what differentiates me from them is I get to work with these folks,
Yeah. Let's talk about these folks and who makes up the Gotham criminal underworld. Paul, this is the first time Riddler is at the center of a Batman live-action movie in over 25 years. Wow. I'm sure fans are wondering, how good is he at Wordle? But I want to know, what drew you to the Riddler? Like, what did you read and see in the script where you're like, I want to play this guy?
Well, I was totally surprised and blown away by the script. And this day and age, you have to ask why are we going to reinterpret the Batman, right? And right from the get-go of Matt's script, he had a really clear point of view of what he was bringing to this film. You could see the film as you read it, and something that I was really moved by was that he was exploring the two sides of trauma, maybe. And, the Batman is born of trauma, right? Bruce Wayne losing his parents. And some people are able to take that and use it as fuel. And sometimes that fuel can lead towards something potentially good. And I think sometimes people take that fuel and it takes them. I guess I was really interested also in The Mask and the idea that a vigilante in our world, we often can see what we want to see. And even though to a lot of people the Batman stands for good, I can tell you that I, as my character, saw him representing exactly what I wanted to, as a great source of inspiration and power. And so there was some awesome gray in the morality of Gotham and in the idea of good and bad. It just felt super complex and thrilling and deep, and I mean, I'm still so excited about it.
Oh, we're so excited to see it. But speaking of inspiration, Colin, let's talk about Penguin, because I was looking at a dossier of like all the roles you've had in your life, and they're just so fantastical. And when I think people think of Penguin, they think of like umbrellas and Danny DeVito. So how did you take this character, and how did you conceive Penguin into your own version while still maintaining all the things that this character is like endured? And what was it like having that suit on? Like, how are you guys reacting to it, like with that suit?
It was fun. It was we had a day. I read the script first. I loved Matt's films, and I think he's an extraordinary filmmaker. And I think, however large a scale he may present his films in, there's always something incredibly immediate and personal at the core of his films, which is a testament to just his true interest, not just as a painter and as a filmmaker and somebody who presents these really beautiful aesthetics through the medium of film, but somebody who really is concerned with the human condition, Matt, as a man and an artist. So when I read the script, I found all those things that I had recognized in his previous work were alive and well and presented, of course, in a new way and in a new world, a world that's very familiar to us all as either comic book lovers or film lovers of Batman as a character, but was incredibly new and original. And so I was so gripped by the script, and I just wanted to be part of it. I didn't know what I could do with it until when I read Penguin. I found it hard to find out where he was in his trajectory as a man and his trajectory as a criminal, because I know he's the Penguin that I felt we found was very aspirational, had dreams about power and dreams about getting out from beneath the shadow of his own, what he perceived as his own disfigurement, and how he had been judged as well for looking maybe the way he looks and for being the way he is. So he very gingerly compensates, I don't even say overcompensates, but is compensated through the use of violence and his street smarts in a world that's been very hard for him to deal with. So all those things were there, having talked to Matt. And the one thing Matt always wanted to be aware of with this film, and I think it's really, really clear when you see it, is everything is grounded, everything is believable, everything is practically reachable through your understanding as a human being, and physically as possible as well. But the makeup and the thing, so that was fun. That was fun. So I honestly, when I read the script, I was kind of like all the shit that I just said, but then I read the script, I also was going, I don't really know what to do with. And then Matt showed me Mike Marino's design for what the Penguin's visage was going to look like. And as soon as he showed me the design, I swear to God, that was the second he showed me the design, I got so, and the script is fantastic. It was my myopia, shortcoming as an actor, that I was struggling to see how I would find my way in with the 5 or 6 scenes that Penguin had. When I saw what Mike Marino created with the makeup, I just got so excited. And we had a makeup test out in Warner Brothers Studios one day, and there was 8 or 9 people there, you know, someone to do the teeth, someone to do the wig, someone to do the this, someone to do 4 people who were applying things. And it was so exciting, and we were all just on the same page. There was like 8, 9, 10 of us there, and we were all, and I'd done a bit of dialect work, so as soon as the makeup went on, the dialect came in a little bit, and it was just fun. It was just so much fun. It was and so many people. It didn't feel like my creation alone. Like, I'm just part of a team that brought that stuff to life, you know, starting with Matt and his genesis of what he wrote on the page.
Wow. Well, after hearing that, I mean, we're so excited to see him in this
fun,
and in the
freebie.
spin-off.
It was a freebie. I'm not even there. I'm not even there. Like, if anyone wants to give me a bad review, I go, F yourself. It's not even there. That's why I said Mike Marino. It's like, no, give it to the makeup artist. If I'm
Well,
gone,
you said
it's
we're all on
me.
the same page, though. Everyone's on the same
Yeah.
page. That's amazing. The fact that we're even getting more from that character and from yours, Jeffrey, and also your laughs have just been killing me this whole interview. Can I say I love your laugh so much?
Oh, my life.
Yeah. I love that we're just getting more in all these spin-off series. But speaking of more, I want to ask you a question, Rob, that I think everyone's going to be thinking when they walk out of the theater. How long do you want to play Batman?
Yeah, I mean, it was so fun doing it. I mean, I'm down to do it as many times as people want to see it, really. Like, I mean, I'm gonna go get this one out first. But yeah, like, I mean, I've talked to Matt about the idea of doing a trilogy, and and it will be wonderful. And I really, really enjoyed the process, and it's such a fun character to play, and yeah, it'll be lovely. Lovely.
There's so much room for this Batman to grow too.
Yes.
It's really,
Big time.
I think you
It
come
needs
like
that.
Big
This is
time.
what it's set up
We want to see the
Another
evolution
step.
of Bruce
Yeah.
Wayne in this big time.
He's a giant party boy.
No, I'm really, that is
He's
something
made
I
a
think,
man.
but I think because you're such a recluse, Bruce is such a recluse in this film, to see Bruce evolve into the person that knows he has to perform and be on a yacht with some, like, that's a really fun journey to go on. I really, no,
And
truly.
Alfred's like, you need to be Batman again. He's like, I'm at factory.
I'm having a mojito.
This is a big deal for you guys, and when we do things that are a big deal in life, there's the anticipation of it, then there's the doing it, and then there's the coming out on the other side of it, which is where you guys are now. But I feel like we're in this sweet spot right now where you guys are done filming, but you haven't shared it with the world yet. So I just want to capture right now, how are you feeling in this moment? And we'll just go down the line. Thanks, Zoe.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm saying, I'm excited to see. I don't usually get a bit of a grump sometimes when it comes to films and stuff that I do, and I can easily kind of be disparaging, you know. But try not to. I'm really excited. I'm genuinely excited about this. I'm just excited to be a part of it, and I'm excited to have worked with these actors, and I'm excited to be in the world that Matt envisioned and that was created, production design and lit by Greg and all of it. I'm really excited to be a part of it. Yeah, truly.
Yeah, it's a really special moment. You know, I think, you know, even if we continue to make these films, for the, you know, this moment will never happen again for the first film to come out. And there's something bittersweet about it because it's not ours anymore. You know, I think when you put art into the world, it stops being our little, you know, creation. And so, you know, it's the end of something and also the beginning of something, and it's really special.
Yeah, and I think after a kind of very difficult, strange period, to be a part of something which has this fan base that still has such an anticipation for it, they're very, very excited. You kind of really feed off it. Like, I mean, there's like, we're in a period where there's hardly any movies come out in the cinema at the moment, and like to have this level of anticipation, it's lovely, and it kind of makes you, it gives you hope for cinema, it gives you hope for the movies that come afterwards, and yeah, it's a real privilege to be a part of it.
I got so excited to see Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the very different films and all that, whatever. But really excited. I got caught up in the global energy. It was my awareness that people all around the world were going with their kids or their friends or their lovers or whatever,
It's an event.
and really having this experience.
Cultural
And
moment,
I
yeah.
have no expectation for how many people are going to like this, love it, not like it, have a gripe with it or any of that. But I do believe, and I was saying it to Matt when Matt finished the film, I sent him a text, I said, I hope, because Matt worked, I don't know
my
how the
God.
man is
Oh my
saying.
God.
I got worried about him.
I'm still worried.
I swear
I'm
to God,
still
I
worried
said, you
about
need to
it.
go to a forest, put
Yeah.
some trees, cry for 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, you know, build
No,
fire, eat some
seriously.
chestnut. Like,
Someone check on Matt
what's my
Reeves.
point? Oh yeah, I sent him a
Movies.
text saying,
So
you know,
excited.
saying, I hope you can grasp that you're going to move and bring a lot of entertainment and joy into so many, like millions of people's lives. Even if it does badly, he's going to do that in millions of people's lives.
Well, I think the thing, though, particularly about this, you know, making this film, we made it over a long period of time, you know, in kind of, you know, in unusual circumstances, but circumstances that we've all around the world experienced. And there's also a sense now that we can't trust certain things. There's a sense of uncertainty and a sense of fluidity. But with these characters, these films, the story back to 80 years, characters that are known, loved, audiences, people yearn for them because they trust them. There's something that you can hold on to. Even the Riddler, I trust I know what the Riddler's going to be. I trust that he's going to be the Riddler. And I think there's something I've, you know, as I've kind of taken the passion that fans have for this, you know, as you kind of sense it. And I think it's something around that. It's something that in a shifting world, in a shifting time, people can hold on to with both hands. And so, yeah, I'm pretty stoked that we can, you know, finally give over to them what we've been churning out, you know, over the year and a half, or however long it was that we worked on it. But yeah, and finally just let it out there and hope people trust it.
And I hope people go to the theater, right? If you're able to
Yeah,
go to the theater.
same.
This is a movie. You will have the rest of your life to watch it at home. But this film, this kind of film, is why big screens exist. You know, so I really urge people to if they're able to go see this in the cinema, because it's an experience. And to be alive in this moment, to have the opportunity to see it on a screen that big is pretty special. Pretty amazing.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Guys, tickets are on sale right now. I think I speak for everyone when I say congratulations and thank you, and let the countdown begin.
We had a great day. We went in and we had all the bat suits. And Rob was there and I was like going, this is pretty cool. And he tried on, the one that he put on, he claims it was Clooney's because Clooney is the only person who has a head as big as his. I thought it was Kilmer's. I can only tell you it had nipples. Like, I would never have been drawn to do a superhero movie, but I've always loved Batman, and in particular what I find interesting is the psychology of somebody who would be that character. He doesn't have superpowers. Now, here's what I relate to about him. I feel like here's a guy who's trying to make sense of his life in the only way he can, and it makes no sense. He goes out night after night and do this thing, and for me, in a weird way, that's sort of what filmmaking is. Like, you go and you're trying to make sense through imagery of your life. I always like the idea in the Hitchcockian way of putting yourself in the shoes of someone and watching them do things that you'd like to think you would never do. And say, God, in that circumstance, might I do it?
Right.
And it taps into those parts of you to say, okay, so what drives people to the edges, to the darkness of what they do? And so I just think that there's something about that kind of storytelling that for me, that empathetic, subjective storytelling is what cinema means to me. When I go to the movies, what I want to do is I want to have that transportive experience where you take me into something and I experience people's lives through the camera in a way. And so I'm just incredibly drawn to that kind of thing. So and also it's a way to explore my anxieties. Like, there's nothing, honestly, when I wrote this, there was nothing scarier to me than the idea that I might be in my car. I had read about a serial killer who hid in people's cars. That's the other thing that I do when I did the Riddler and all that kind of stuff. I do a lot of research. So I was I was reading about serial killers because I thought, well, that's essentially what this guy must be. And I read about a guy. Oh my God, so scary. This guy he left his car at like a Walmart, and this is how they caught the guy. The guy was in Walmart, and this other guy goes, oh, hey, is that your Toyota out there? And he goes, yeah. He goes, you're not going to want to get in that car. We're going to want to call the police. He goes, why? He goes, I saw a guy crawl in the back seat. He's hiding there right now. And when the police came and they caught him, he turned out to be someone who had killed a number of people in exactly this way. He was a serial killer. And so I was like, well, that's scary as hell. That terrified me. I just got scared telling it.
Yeah, me too.
And so, but
it's frightening in the movie. But yeah, like take it from real life.
And so that thing about trying to tap into your worst fears and then finding the way to realize them cinematically, visually, in such a way it somehow taps into that fear. So it puts you into that circumstance. So this is all designed in that way. And I started thinking, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't do Batman. And then I read Year One. And when I read Year One, cool, right? Can I tell you something? There was something about that where it clicked into place. I was like, oh, I get it. And there was something from that point forward. It opened up everything. And then when I read other comics after that, I had it was something about that thing. First of all, what's so great and why it all comes back to Scorsese for me, this comic, there's a commemorative edition that has Miller's notes to Mazzucchelli talking about how to draw the frames. And he talks, there's a shot, and it's weird because I had this intuitive thing in reading it before I read the commemorative edition, where he's walking in the East End and he's got this kind of sort of, military bomber jacket on. You probably have an image. Yeah. Okay, so that image. Now, do you know what he wrote to Mazzucchelli in his notes, Frank Miller?
You tell them I do.
So he wrote, in this frame, Bruce looks like he's just won the Travis Bickle lookalike contest. And I was like, oh, it's Scorsese. And so it was this weird thing because I already had this kind of connection to it, but there was something about the way that, and it's interesting because Dark Knight Returns is like another kind of groundbreaking one, but in a very different way. It's got a level of, there's more fantasy to it. This was so grounded, and the groundedness of it was something I related to, and that's why it was a breakthrough to me. We know that she has a very personal story that he's judging her for, that he's wrong about, that it's an awakening over the course of the whole movie to go like, dude, you know what the fuck you're talking about, okay? And that would create a kind of tension between them that could be both sexy but charged, and it would be the one moment where really they're both on the same side of the law, because in the future, if they meet, they're gonna start to be pitted against each other, of course, in the future. And so that had a kind of sexual tension to it. Then, when I was casting, I wanted to find actors who could have that, and Rob we cast first. And when Zoe came in, they actually were friends. And when we were doing the screen test, there was something, first of all, when she came in, I loved her. We had a meeting, and she just talked so brilliant. There's a lot of ideas that are in the story that came directly from her. Like, she said to me, she goes, this whole thing with the cats. I was like, yeah. She's Catwoman. And she goes, I think it's about strays. I said, oh, that's really right. She's collecting strays. And she said, can we put that in the script? And I said, for sure. And I said, but how do I said, I'm just trying to figure out in that conversation, the place would have to be in that scene with the cats. And then you say, I have a thing about strays. And I said, but how would we get you to say that? She goes, oh, that's easy. He can say you got a lot of cats. And I was like, that's genius. So
if we don't stand up, no one will.
You got a lot of cats.
I have a thing about strays.
So I cast her. No. But that is part of why I cast her, because she was very insightful about the character, and she's a terrific artist, and I just really enjoyed talking to her. And then I knew that she knew Rob, but when we did the screen test, and we had other actors read with Rob, but when she read with Rob, there was a thing, and you were like going, oh, this is cool. And so they just had a friendship going. There was a familiarity between the two of them that allowed them to have a kind of intimate charge with each other. They really do like each other. I mean they're both involved, but they do like each other. And so the answer is that it was intended at the script stage, but your job then becomes as a director, like that only works. I mean, one of the things you generally can't fake is chemistry. So one of the things you do when you want chemistry is you have to have actors read together and see if they have chemistry. The reason why I love Scorsese so much is because my parents fought like a Scorsese movie. They threw stuff at each other, they screamed at each other. I thought the house was gonna explode. So when I had my camera, it was the one place where I had control. I thought, I can set up this shot. Okay, this is pretty good. It's not gonna explode. Maybe I could make it explode. And then you were in control of it. And there was something about I think it's why I wanted to be a director, because I felt so out of control in my family. And so that part of it is something that comes easily to me, because I think whatever comes easiest to you, what you're most interested, your fascinations, your preoccupations, they're what's going to drive your storytelling. So no matter what you do, you have to hold on to the idea that you have to be nimble, you have to look at the opportunities presented, you have to make your own opportunities, and just always hold on to your voice. It's super important. You guys you're the future. And I'm excited. Look, here's the thing. I mean, I know Scorsese always talks about this, like losing hope at the end of a movie, and then what's exciting is watching someone else's work. Watching what other people do and going, oh my God, how did they do that? And you guys are going to do things that me and my contemporaries, I mean, I'm also super old now, but I mean, that we never thought of. And you have things to say that I don't know about what it is to be in the world that I want to see.
Hey, I'm Robert Pattinson, and I'm going to talk about some of my iconic performances. That's true. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Cedric Diggory, the head of the Hufflepuff clan, and he's the first death in Harry Potter, which is my claim to fame. It was definitely my concept to jump out of the tree, like at the beginning for my intro, which I then kind of repeated later on in Twilight. For some reason, I always have a suggestion to be like, why doesn't he just appear just like jumping out of a tree?
This strapping young lad must be Cedric, am I right?
I'd sort of fallen into it. I mean, it was so terrifying. I remember the first scene I ever shot on that was in the magical maze at the end, and I'd never done anything with special effects and stunts, and it was a big deal at the time. It felt like very, very intimidating. I think I'd read a book on method acting. The only thing I really got out of that was just beating yourself up before every single scene. That was basically my only concept of how to prepare for a scene. I was psyching myself up as if I was getting into a fight or something before these scenes, and just screaming into a pillow and like fighting, punching myself and like kind of ripping my clothing and stuff. But I had all these prosthetic wounds on, and all of the prosthetics would melt off my face, and I'd have to have all my makeup done again. But I had no concept of how to kind of get into a psyched up physical state. I remember holding a wand and thinking that it felt so dorky to hold it like a magic wand, so I'm holding it like a gun with two hands, thinking I'm in like a Die Hard movie. I think I even have one eye closed when I'm like looking down, like it's got a viewfinder on it. I spent a lot of time living off the Harry Potter money. I moved to an apartment in Soho in London. I really thought I was going to do music at that point. I don't know where I had the kind of belief in that, because there was absolutely no one saying that there's a kind of music career on the table. But I was doing a lot of gigs all the time. I was just constantly doing open mics all the time. And then I ran out of money, basically. It was definitely going the wrong direction in terms of a career up until Twilight. I'd started to develop this absolute terror of auditions, which I'm sure a lot of actors have. And I'd kind of could be so enthusiastic about something, and then the day of the audition, just my confidence just entirely collapsed. The same thing happened the morning of the Twilight audition. I used to live on my agent's couch at the time in her apartment. And she sent me the email exchange. It was like, I'm freaking out. I don't want to go to the audition anymore. And then underneath it saying, well, find a Valium in my bathroom. I'd never taken a Valium before. I just remember just feeling so glorious in the back of the taxi with the window open and just being like, wow, this is what I've been missing. And so I think I had this sort of quite spacey, detached kind of thing in the audition, which must have kind of worked for the character.
That's Edward Cullen.
I do think there's something in that first movie. I can see that people do it, like, taking it seriously, and it kind of has this, it has a passion to it.
Everything about me invites you in. My voice, my face, even my smell.
You know, I was 21 and kind of wanted to make it as arty as possible, and so we had this strange tension where the studio was kind of a little bit scared to make things a little bit too emo and stuff, and I thought that was the only way to play it. It just seems so ridiculous talking about it now, because I was literally I spent so much time just infuriated. Like it's definitely something about being 21 as well, because I can't believe like the way I was acting half the time, like when I think back on it. The scene when Edward introduces Bella to his family the first time, I remember that being the day, because my agent, my manager, like came up as a surprise visit, and I was like, oh hey, I just thought everything was fine. And then at lunch, they were like, okay, so whatever you're doing right now, you need, after lunch, just do the opposite, or you'll be fired by the end of the day. And I was like, okay. And so that was the only thing that got me to sort of smile a little bit.
Like my own personal brand of heroin.
I also think that if I tried to play it lighthearted, the way I would do it would end up looking so wrong, like that I'd probably end up looking even more like a psychopath. There was this big, like tons of people signing this petition to have me not cast, but nothing about my life really changed until the weekend, or maybe like a week before the movie came out. So when the signatures came, it just felt such an abstract, like I just didn't really care, and I was very excited about doing the movie. But yeah, then when it came out, it just changed everything so fast. I mean, it was overnight. Batman. That was no hesitation, yes. Even my agents and stuff just thought like, oh, this is interesting. I mean, I thought you only wanted to play like just total freaks all the time. Like, he is a freak, this is another freak. You look for things that kind of scare you look for things that feel incredibly out of reach. It's such the jewel in the crown of characters.
You know, you really could be doing more for this city. Your family has a history of philanthropy, but as far as I can tell, you're not doing anything.
It's just a totally different vibe. I mean, it's sad. It's something which I always thought about Batman. I thought it's really, really sad. It's a tragedy. That's one of the reasons it feels kind of different, because it's like it's year 2. We're not going to do the origin story again. Instead of him getting over his parents dying at the beginning and then just becoming Batman and saving Gotham, now he really hasn't gotten over them at all. And it's kind of, and I'm playing the parents' death constantly throughout the whole time.
Riddler's latest. It's all about the Waynes. If we don't stand up, no one will.
I always like approaching the kind of major character like that, and if you look at it very literally, or like from an emotional context, it does end up becoming kind of something kind of strange, and it's always kind of shocks you what comes out of it. I mean, I didn't really realize how sad it would make me feel. There's something about his relationship with Selena Kyle as well, and it's very present in the graphic novels. I mean, I think a lot of those writers really touched on that. There's ways to reinterpret that character, I mean, an infinite number of ways. This is the maybe 9th or 10th Batman movie, and it does feel incredibly different. It's funny, I was talking to other actors who are in the movie, and everyone else said like, no, and even Matt said like, don't watch the other ones, don't watch any of the other movies, don't be thinking about that kind of stuff too much. But I was like, I've already seen all the other movies, and they're incredibly familiar to me, and I like all the other movies. It's not like you're trying to rescue like a dead character. I mean, they're all like really, really good portrayals, and I kind of really watched a lot of them on the run up to it to just see where's a gap. and something that hasn't really been explored yet. But I think it's also really fun as well doing that, because it's like every single person who's played Batman is a pretty heavyweight actor, and they all had great interpretations of it, and very, very different. So it's fun watching them. No, I definitely don't have a favourite. No. I mean, I think Christian Bale did like just such a. I mean, it's so kind of iconic, like it's the voice that he was doing in it. But it's almost impossible to not do that.
Where were the other drugs going? I swear to me.
It's really hard to get into a artificially lower register. I mean, and to do it a long time, because I mean, there's a lot of scenes in this as well where you're kind of long dialogue scenes as Batman, which is quite unique out of a lot of the other movies in the series, and trying to kind of stay really, really low and have kind of nuance in the lines and stuff. I mean, it's really hard. It's really, really hard.
When that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning.
I think I was doing vocal exercises without actually knowing they were vocal exercises. I think your larynx or something just got strengthened when I was doing the movie. When I was doing ADR for it, I mean, I couldn't even do the voice again. I mean, I had to it had completely reverted back to normal.
Who are you under there?
I'm vengeance.
There's a kind of understanding, which I think every actor who goes into it, there's some way of playing Batman that just feels right as Batman. And like, if you try and do something too different, it sometimes feels really off. But it's funny, it's like as soon as you put on the suit, it sort of does something to you. You start behaving in this quite particular way. And it might be about the kind of restriction in the movement and stuff, where there's definitely elements of just the kind of practical aspect of it.
You want to be able to turn your head. Sure, man, backing out of the driveway easier.
You don't know how you're going to feel until you put on the suit. And then just because this suit was a little bit more articulated, because I'd done the audition in, I think it was George Clooney's one, and it was incredibly difficult to move in.
Well, I'm totally over, all right? Positively. Me too, definitely.
You had to choose the suit by the size of your head, and I think my head was the closest to Clooney's head.
Was your head like locked?
It's locked and you're boiling hot, like absolutely boiling. If you have any lights on you, you're just pouring sweat. And then as I was doing it, and you're also doing an audition, so I'm kind of terrified anyway. And people are saying, what can we do about this sweat? I mean, you're thinking like, if I don't stop sweating, I'm not gonna get the part. And so you're trying to shut down your body a little bit.
If I'm not mistaken, that's the one with the nipples, isn't it?
It is, but then I keep getting confused with, because I think there might be two nipple suits. I think one has more prominent nipples. I think on the Val Kilmer suit as well, I think there's some nipples on that. There might just be one nipple. Good Time was another wonderful experience, and also a totally unexpected reaction to it as well. I remember talking to Josh and Benny at some hotel in LA, and I said, I want to do whatever you guys are doing next, I want to do it. And I remember Josh saying, do you mean that? Because I'll have a script in 6 weeks, and like, we'll do it. And then the first iteration of Good Time came after 6 weeks, and it was unbelievable. I mean, they're great directors, but I love the way they write so much.
Excuse me, you Peter? Yes, I am. We're in the middle of something. Hello. Nick, what are you doing?
We're in the middle of something here. We're in the middle of
get
the
up.
exam. Hey,
That's
hey,
the
Nick,
about
Nick.
the stuff, the pan, and the
Wait,
chicken.
please. How would you like it if I made you cry? How would you like that?
Benny is also just a phenomenal actor as well. I mean, he just stayed in the character like all day and would kind of slightly change his voice when he had to kind of suggest something to Josh. It really felt like a character talking. Benny would be doing a scene with me. He was also operating the boom at the same time. So he's like holding the boom between us. It's definitely the definition of run and gun filmmaking.
Nick, come here. Stay with me. Where'd you go?
Where are you?
Did you at the bank?
You're circling around. I'm on the corner. I'm on the corner where you dropped me off. You gotta get back here right now.
I wasn't really like trying to perfect an accent. It's just something that felt right. It's just all just trying to do everything in an intuitive way. And it's weird because I mean, it does sound like a Queen's, specific Queen's accent, but it was kind of, I wasn't really doing it in a very academic way. It was much more just feeling your way through it, I think. Well, there's two lines that were just probably my two favorite lines I think I've ever said in a movie, which is, the one was when I was saying to Leah,
Don't be confused. It's just gonna make it worse for me.
I don't know anyone else apart from Josh who would ever come up with that line. And then the line, I'm talking about the kind of metaphysical connection with Talia, and then at the end of it just undercuts it, saying like, all right, I'm just gonna take a shit in that guy's house.
Okay, I'm gonna go and take a shit in that guy's house. I'm gonna try the hospital again in a minute. Just wait here for me, okay?
It's just a very, very specific feeling. which the only other person I've ever seen that in a script with is The Lighthouse, with Robert Eggers. The Lighthouse, I play a character called Thomas Winslow. No, that's not even his name. Jesus fucking Christ. Thomas Howard. Yeah, he's a little bit confused about his identity. He's a little bit Ephraim Winslow and Thomas Howard. I loved The Witch, Robert's previous movie. I really wanted to find something with him. I thought he was a very, very special director. I had such a good time on Good Time, and I wanted to swing wildly the other direction, but I wanted everything to be strange. And I kind of said to Robert, I only want to do strange things. And Robert came back with The Lighthouse and said, if this isn't strange enough for you, then I don't think I'm capable of anything stranger than this. Really trying to convince everyone that The Lighthouse was a comedy, and trying to convince, I think it was the HFPA, like I'm really trying to convince like relatively elderly people, no, it is a comedy, it's 100% a comedy, it should qualify for the musical or comedy section. And everyone had watched this incredibly dark movie and thinking like, I don't know how much of a comedy it is. But then I see that audiences watching it, and people people laugh so much more than I ever would have thought. I mean, I thought it was hilarious when I read the script. But yeah, I'm always quite stunned about the reaction to it. And also how much people like sea shanties. I mean, I had absolutely no idea. I remember seeing the first screening and everyone's like bobbing their heads like they're at a concert whenever a sea shanty came on. I'm like, wow, like how did Eggers know that that was gonna be a trend in 2018? I mean, it's like, that is out of the blue. And it's funny because everyone's like, oh, what accent are you doing, blah, blah, blah. Always get these strange, unfounded criticisms about my accents. But there's this area in Maine, which I guess of how the immigration worked there, it was a kind of like Devon or Dorset accents in England, and then mixed with a bit of like certain types of American accents, and then there was like a kind of weird elements of like Liverpudlian and all the different sailors that have come there. But you kind of listen to this really tiny area in Maine, and it's been the same accent for hundreds of years, and it doesn't sound anything like a normal American accent. But it's very, very fun. It's also very addictive to do. A lot of the crew started speaking, being like, "Thank you," and like all these different things.
I don't have to say nothing. Danny! Let Neptune strike ye dead, Winslow!
Eggers said, when I asked him how the movie was, he said like, well, it's basically Willem going, arr, 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 and you going like, ong, 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 ong. And I'm like, oh great, sounds great.
Only when he, crowned in cockle shells, his coral time trident screeches fancy-like in the tempest, and plunges right through your gullet.
It was absolutely great working with Willem. We rehearsed for about a week before we started shooting, and he has so much energy, it's just unreal. It's like almost like working with like a 6-year-old. Like they just have kind of, there's nothing that fatigues him, and so I was kind of a little bit terrified at the beginning because he would literally, we'd rehearse the entire movie, and then the second we got to the end, he's like, again! And I just start doing it again, and his energy hadn't even been dented. He's the best.
What?
The scene where we're saying what to each other, just going what. I just remember seeing that in the script. It was over 3 pages where everyone's line was just saying what, and you're looking at it going like, this can't be actually in the script. It's one of those things where you go, I'm not going to see this again ever in my entire life, and I want to be the person to say this because I'll be really, really annoyed if someone else gets to do it.
What?
Tenet. It's the most apocalyptic spy movie that's ever been made. They're really, really big concepts, but it's kind of, it's like all of Chris's movies. You can kind of interpret them. You can either like really, really dig into it and find so many different threads to pull, or you can kind of appreciate it as like a big, massive adventure action movie, and you don't really need to know what's happening like that much. It's so complicated to make the story work. You just thought it's so insane this is even happening. I mean, we're in Estonia, they'd made a car where they'd switched the engine rather. There was a driver driving it with the back wheels at the front for him, and me and John David are pretending to drive it backwards, but with about 700 cars all driving in reverse around us. I mean, it was like one of the most exciting theme park rides you've ever been on in your life, and then you're trying to do a scene at the same time. I mean, it was. I don't think they're going to be making movies like that ever again.
Cosmopolis. Any special reason we're in the car instead of the office? What makes you think we're in the car instead of the office?
Cosmopolis is about a 28-year-old asset manager called Eric Packer. He gets a kind of obscure death threat and he starts to kind of intentionally unravel his own life. I remember doing it and thinking, the audience I want for this is for someone in 10 years' time to be watching TV at 3 o'clock in the morning, and this comes on, and then you have no idea if you're asleep or not.
This is loss of faith. It will force the yuan to drop.
The dollar will settle up.
The yuan will drop. Where's Chin?
Working on visual patterns.
We were shooting inside a limo that was the same size as a normal limo. It was kind of, and it was the cameras on the techno cranes. I've never done a movie like it, where you're doing the entire movie inside like a kind of vocal recording booth almost. Like, it was very, very strange. And it just got to the point by the end of the shoot, I'd never even left the limo. I just stayed in it all day. I love that movie. I've seen it so many times, and I think it's really, I think it's one of my favorite things I've ever done. I like it.
Realize nothing is ever gonna go inside us.
Break the laws of nature. You'll pay for it.
Claire Denis, who directed that, is just one of my favorite people in the entire world. If anyone can experience what it's like to do a Claire Denis movie, I would definitely say you have to do it. But it's completely different to anything else. You just suddenly realize you can approach filmmaking and acting in totally different ways every single movie. And directors like that really allow you the freedom to do it.
It's a fresh strawberry.
So fun. I mean, it was my friend's kid. It's my goddaughter. We cast, because they normally cast identical twin babies for that kind of situation, and the night before the shoot started, I went to meet the babies, and the babies wouldn't have anything to do with me at all and would just scream whenever I came anywhere near them. And I tried to kind of bond with them for about 4 hours, and it was just nothing but terror coming out of them. And it was supposed to be this kind of, like, you know, quite sweet relationship they had with my daughter in it. And I got my friend Sam, and I was like, what are you doing for the next 2 weeks? Like, can Scarlett just play my daughter in a movie? And they flew out the next morning, and I think I'd only ever met Scarlett like once or twice when she was a young baby, but it worked out perfectly.
Well, make it so we now. Break the laws of nature. You'll pay for it.
This is my fortress of solitude. Anonymous couch, anonymous room, anonymous hotel. A quantity of trolls.
Classic performances. I love that thing. I think it's really funny. That's like, I think that was the entire thing from conception to completion was about an hour and a half. Like, just, or maybe 2 hours at the max. I remember my manager saying after, like, you should do a TV series of this. I'm like, of what? There is no TV. Like, so you want me to end my career? But yeah, it was really fun. I know what I should do to promote this movie. Just do a thing about eating a hot dog, like, and losing your mind.
You can call me Rob, I eat hot dogs.
The Rovers.
What's it doing with this car? It's my brother's car.
Who's your brother?
Where is he?
It's funny with acting stuff, the director who just sees something in you that you don't really know you have and kind of shows trust and belief in you and can take a risk, and it just, and people trust you for a bit, and it felt like a very important movie, just like really just sort of sink into a character. It really felt like that I could stay in it all day. Like, I really felt there's something about the environment of where we're shooting at the Outback. Just felt like there was almost no sign of a film crew anywhere. I mean, it was just one of the most immersive experiences. Also beautifully written as well.
I can't tell you nothing more than I already told you.
Oh my gosh, don't you think you've already told me? Start fucking talking to me!
The fact that I'm still getting jobs, like, Like, that just kind of blows my mind, like every single day. I don't quite understand. I think I by accident sold my soul, but I get so excited about it. There's not even a single element of me which is like jaded about it at all. It's the great thing about acting as a job as well, but you always think there's all the insecurity about not having, being unemployed like 90% of the time, but it has the potential to completely change your life, like every single time. It's very exciting, no matter how small the movie is. I mean, it can kind of, it can be this kind of explosion in your reality.
I'm lactose intolerant, so I've had to reject a lot of milkshakes, unfortunately. I always feel bad. Hey, I'm Paul Dano, and I'm being forced to talk about myself. The Batman. There was some resistance in me at first, because I didn't want his glasses to be like stylish or something, but there was something about the clear frames with the mask and with the saran wrap, which is something we added, where it just felt right. It felt really right, and I cannot quantify why. I love Batman. I think Gotham is the coolest, and our backlot was just insane, and the L train over us and that diner, and that was a night filming that diner scene where you have some out of body and you step out and you go like, this is a movie, like it was a movie moment. By Matt having such a specific point of view and a new one, it gave me a lot of freedom. Like this Riddler, like I'm not gonna worry about the other ones or the comics, or like, I tried to take all the archetypal energy I could from the comics, and I read a ton of them, and I'm writing a comic now about the Riddler, and I was shocked by how much I loved putting out the film and engaging with that fan base, being, again, a fan myself, and how much fervor there is around the Batman.
I think you'll be remembered. Good. Psychopath. Making attention. You're gonna die.
I also think that, like, that's why, like, why would we keep making these, right? Like, it's to reinterpret, and it's to reinterpret it for the times as well, to keep investigating a character in a world. So I think for people like Matt and Tim Burton and Chris Nolan, and then whoever's gonna carry it next, like, I think it's got to be an artist with a point of view who's taking that character and that city for the time that we're in. Little Miss Sunshine.
So who do you hang out with?
I auditioned when I was 18, and for the next couple of years, anytime I came to LA, I would meet with the directors, Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris, and they would basically be checking to see if I looked too old. That character of Dwayne, I knew him, and there was a specific friend I had thought about when playing that part, and I didn't know how many other people, I guess, would also know him, because it felt like they did once the movie came out. One of the first scenes we filmed is, there's a dinner table scene quite early on in the film. I think they used 2 cameras around us, and there's a lot of family talking and a lot of action verbally, and I'm trying to participate in that, but without speaking. I mean, I think I tried to experience the world like that a little bit, right? To communicate without speaking and use the notepad. We did some really fun in-character rehearsals for that as well, where we got in a van and went bowling and went out to the diner, and I didn't talk, and I have some really good memories from that film, being stuck in the back of a hot van with Alan Arkin, who was such a joy, and everybody always, asks if Steve Carell was the funniest person on set, and Steve was just the loveliest, and he's very funny, but Alan Arkin was just a razor sharp wit.
A lot of women. I have no reason to lie to you. Not one woman. You heard what I said? Did it go in anywhere?
I was listening to Sufjan Stevens' new album, which had just come out that summer, I think, and I just played it for John and Val. I said, I'm gonna go see him in concert. So me and John and Val and Toni Collette and maybe some others went to see him, and then we went and hung out at, I think, the Chateau Marmont afterwards, like drinking tequila, and then they ended up putting a Sufjan song in the film. I do think that there's a really interesting thing for actors that you have to learn to trust like your thoughts. And I don't think I knew that at the time, but I look back on that now and I go, oh, I wish I'd known I could just really trust what I was thinking and feeling, and that if you're open, that it'll be received.
There will be blood. You just brought the swell in. Yes, so just give me $500 in cash right now and I'll tell you where it is.
Tell you what I'll do, son. I'll give you $100 now. If it proves to be a promising lease, then I'll give you $1,000.
$600.
I was cast at the last minute. I remember spending the day or two I had of prep sitting in the Sunday church in my church with my script and I think with some music. And I started learning the scenes and the lines. We filmed on, I believe, like a 40,000 acre ranch in Marfa, Texas. It was the summer and I think we did some 6-day weeks and it was period wool clothes. And I so wish I remembered more, but I remember sweating. I remember the sun. I remember seeing Daniel for the first time, who I had known, and we'd done a film together called The Battle of Jack and Rose, and I love him, but I remember showing up there and seeing him in his clothes and hearing his voice and, you know, going, oh, I think we would shake hands at the end of the day sometimes. I think it's a much more intuitive, natural thing than maybe it sounds, because it sort of makes sense if you don't get along with the character to stand across the room from each other, because I think you're building up the energy that's going towards the scene.
Daniel, are you a sinner?
Yes. Oh, the Lord
Can't hear you, Daniel. Say it to him. Go ahead and speak to him. It's all right.
Yes.
Down on some knees. Look up to the sky and say it.
It was so clear, the film that was being made and what Daniel and Paul were bringing to it. I tried to do what was asked for in the writing that I think occurs in this character. I feel like the word possession feels important, like how to just let the possession of the scene and the words and the spirit pass through you. I'll never forget laying there in the blood and hearing Daniel say the last line of the film. The way he says it,
I'm finished.
I don't think anybody else would have done what he did. Swiss Army Man. I had actually seen their music videos late one night in a hotel room while I was filming a movie called Youth. And we were on night shoot, so I was staying up late. Saw their videos, I was like, these guys are brilliant. I was like, what is this? 2 days later, maybe, I got an email from my agent being like, these guys called the Daniels have a script they want to send you. And I was like, no effing way. And I opened it and I read the first 2 pages, which involved my character riding a corpse, farting jet ski. I was like, well, this is it. This is exactly, who I am. Almost every script there's a, I don't want to say a key, but there's like a moment, an image, something where you're like, that's my first, hook. And with that one, as I said, it was the opening scene. So when we were out there and I was on this wakeboard with a dummy, and singing at the top of my lungs, and the music is beautiful in that film and awesome, and so even that, it just fills you up, the music. I will say I was very grateful that my scene partner was Daniel Radcliffe, and I had to carry him quite a bit. That was pretty brutal. I think it was a pretty tiring shoot. I think I was sore every day, even though we were having fun. Tired, sore. It felt like really good to be with those guys, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Shiner, to be with them in the woods, making this crazy movie. And if you haven't seen it, it is one of the, I would say just go watch the first 5 minutes and you can choose whether to keep going. Love and Mercy.
I can take us further. If you let me stay at home in the studio, that's what I needed to do. And I promise, when you come back, I will have stuff for you. I will blow your mind.
John Cusack and I play Brian Wilson. I think John and I met on my last day, his first date. We didn't communicate about playing the Bryans. I think we trusted in Brian, in the character of Brian, and in the sort of essence and spirit of Brian. And I think that the way that film and script was structured
We were certainly not trying to get to a place of impersonation or imitation. I think we were trying to just get inside of a very complicated, artist. Nobody wants, you don't want to fake Brian Wilson's voice, but I mean, I think you can feel the heart-soul connection as for an audience watching an actor if they're actually playing or singing something. And I guess Brian approved because I was hoping to sing and play the stuff where Brian's alone in the film. So there's a moment in the film where I play some of God Only Knows and there's Some of You Still Believe in Me and some Surf's Up. We filmed in the actual studio that he recorded Pet Sounds in back in '65, and they played the stuff in the studio live, and I got to work with them on camera. The physical thing of learning to play some songs and having to stretch my voice again, I used to sing, and that was an incredible experience for me. I was given access to a lot of session tapes and to hear Brian working with the musicians, and it's one of the best experiences I've had as an actor, and I think that's in large part to the music. It was a great gift to me, that part and that experience. Similarly to like Swissy, I think it relit some part of me. I don't know what part, but something got reactivated maybe. For somebody who struggled, he wanted to give people something. I think he wanted to make them smile, and he made me smile. Oh, Jeff.
My name is Jay. Jen and Jay? We are animal lovers.
I can't remember what I'd done right before Okja, but I know that I needed to play more of a hero type of character, or somebody who stands for something, and that felt important and right in that moment for wherever I was in my life. I loved that pig. I mean, I remember Bong Joon-ho showing me a drawing of a pig years before this, and I was like, that's it, like, that's the movie, like, this pig, like, beautiful. It depended on the scene, but there was a couple of people who held a sort of a gray head that was there for us, which was great, because even a sort of grayish looking animal is better than nothing. You can project onto it pretty same fact, like, we all like stuffed animals, like, like, it's pretty clear we are able to give these things personalities and feel from them. And I remember there's a moment, right, where Jay pulls the shard of glass, I think, from Okja's foot, and I loved the, the tenderness of that moment. I love my LF guys. We're still in touch. I had a great time there in Seoul, sitting on the Han River with those guys, drinking cheap soju, and I just had we had a really good time. Night and day. I have a really clear memory of watching Cruise work with the stunt team, and I remember seeing how he considered the audience and the impact of the stunts on the audience, and how passionate and rigorous he was about that. And that was a real lesson. I had not been around that before. I had not seen an actor consider the audience and the impact of how the stunt and the cut of the camera would feel for the audience, and I took that with me, and I thought, okay, I would say most of the work that I've done isn't about that relationship, but I think it's fascinating and interesting to consider it in the right thing. I always think that the content lends itself to the form, and there's a group of people, there's a temperature and a vibration on set, there's the way the director works, there's the way that the crew works. I mean, one of my favorite DPs I worked with is Roger Deakins, because his crew is so quiet. There's and it brings a focus, and I really appreciate that. And I know when I was directing, I wanted it to feel like when my actors step on set, everything changes. Escape at Dannemora.
What the fuck are you doing, man? Fucking dark in here, man.
Bro, it was probably the hardest shoot I've ever done. 7 months, prison, just the color of those walls, and Ben sort of went to great lengths to have things feel as authentic as possible, and we shot in a lot of real locations and in some prisons, and a lot of our extras were ex-cons, and I really like how it turned out, I have to say. I was really impressed with what Ben did, and I guess I don't always know when I'm doing something. You forget, I think, that it is going to be really entertaining, and really, because like once you're in the prison and the reality of it, it's like, well, there's murder, and then it turns out to be a pretty good piece of entertainment. I do remember being in those pipes, actually. That was, man, one time Benicio showed up, they were trying to like measure out, like, can we do it in the actual size of the pipe that was there? Walked on set, nope. You know, like, right, because like, I mean, we could barely fit in them. I liked that sledgehammer. I liked breaking up down the walls. That was fun. The Fablemans, Steven Spielberg making a film that's based on his childhood. It is semi-autobiographical. He wrote it with Tony Kushner, who's one of my favorite writers. And yeah, it's, I think, still hard for me to comprehend that Steven Spielberg would ask me to play his father or a version of his father. This is, of course, a project that's very personal to him and was to all of us, and really meaningful. It's about a kid who discovers a family secret, and then how the camera and movies play a part in understanding who we are and the way the world works. And it was a big experience. I have not acted since. I spent a lot of time with Steven and talking to Steven, and family videos and audio and photographs, and it's sort of probably unprecedented access into that person's life. I mean, it's such a trip. But I loved this character, Bert, deeply. Beautiful person of integrity and thought, and I think deep love, but maybe not somebody who always knows how to express it. Ruby Sparks. It's almost like I'm waiting to spend time with her. The one I'm writing is, I go to sleep at night just waiting to get to my typewriter again so I can be with her. It's like I'm falling in love with her. It's wonderful. No, it's not. I can't fall in love with a girl I write. Why not? So my partner, Zoe, started writing the script, and I don't know what this says about me, but I think I sort of assumed it was like she was writing it for me or something, just to build a movie from the ground up and be a part of that process. The amount of love and care you put into it and what it then means to you. And I think one of the profound experiences on that, aside from making something with Zoe, was also just being on the other side of the casting table and seeing how many like wonderful and beautiful actors there are, and seeing that, oh, like, it's not about who's like good or who's bad or who's the best. It's like whose essence is right for this part. And I remember there was a recovery period from Ruby Sparks when Zoe and I had to figure out like what else we talked about at the dinner table. And I would say that that's the hardest part of working together. I don't remember over talking with Zoe about the character, because you know, you're meant to interpret it, and if the writing's good, I think what she's saying through it is clear. Prisoners.
Where are those girls? Where are those girls? Hey, give me a flashlight. Show me where those girls are in the woods.
People love prisoners. This is one of those that you don't really want to do, but you do, if you know what I mean. I'd seen Denis film on Sunday, and he told me Roger Deakins was shooting it, who I just had a massive crush on. Do I want to play that part? No. Like, really? Like, no. But like, yeah, actually I can see it, and I sort of like see a way in, and then soon enough you're doing it. One of the important moments in the development of that was just, I remember thinking, okay, if you've had that much trauma as a kid, you know, what happens when we're scared and what happens to our body, and just like, okay, what would happen if you just kept living with that? And so I think a way into that character for me was just through the physicality of how I held my body and my jaw even, because I needed to find a way out from my own mental health. I needed to find a way to step in and out of that. I knew I did not want to engage with that material. Brian Wilson in Love and Mercy, that's something where you're going to stay in the soup for the time you're doing it. It's easier to actually, like once you're in those waters, like stay in them. But with something like that, I was like, how do I, Paul, learn how to, and it was, a lot of it was through physicality and sort of saying, okay, if my body's like this, I'm entering into that character, and then, you know, can I exit out of it easier? Yeah, luckily Hugh Jackman's like the nicest dude in the world. It's true what everybody says. He's just super sweetie, and so if you're gonna get beaten by somebody, it's nice to have Hugh on the other end of it. I think I didn't know that was coming. Yeah, but I felt some good enough hands. Each time you're trying to trick yourself into like learning how to do it all again to keep it, you know. I remember on 12 Years a Slave, actually, Chiwetel was so good at pulling a punch that we had to do, and I was like, how does he do that? Because, you know, and I remember being like, I just felt stupid. I was like, you know, just hit me with the whip, because I don't have to act this.
Dangerous crowd you're stealing from.
Falcone owes me that money, and I'm gonna make him pay. In 2019, I heard whispers of this project and that they were looking for a Catwoman, and thought I would just throw my hat in the ring. I was completely blown away by the script, but what got me just really amped was the idea of working with Matt after getting a little bit of a taste of that when I did the chemistry read with Rob. How could I do that to her? I'm gonna find them, and I'm gonna make them pay. You gonna help me? Come on.
Don't make any noise without me. You have to understand this is far more dangerous.
Help you, baby. Take care of myself.
I was very excited about the connection that she had with Rob, because the two of them knew each other, they were friends, so there was this kind of charge between them.
You really don't care what happens to me that night, do you?
Looks good. Here. I've known her for years. I was like, so it'd be perfect, and it seemed so obvious to just say, yeah, you look like Catwoman.
We actually did screen tests, and we brought in different actors, and Zoe came in and she just stole it. You could feel that drive, the need in her that was Selena Kyle.
We truly did love Frank Miller's Year One and the way he drew Selena Kyle. It looked like Zoe Kravitz to us. We're like, it's right there. It's got to be Zoe Kravitz.
She's got a wonderful fierceness when she squares up with Batman. She's got this muscularity about her.
Zoe and myself, it was a bit of a reunion for us. I used to actually teach Zoe private lessons in martial arts. She was 10 years old.
The first couple months of training was, you know, it was intense. I would hobble home. Started training in November 2019, and then we shut down in March for 6 months, and I tried my hardest to just kind of remember everything I've learned.
Given the required social distancing, we've implemented video training so that they can learn technique and stance work.
Just extend and bring it back in. And you see, as I extend, I drop my chest, but I still look up.
Rob Alonzo and his whole team are just incredible people, really dedicated to it feeling real and feeling accurate.
As you're doing that, you do the plunge. It's this way, and maybe you have a little bit more.
A lot of her style is more evasive, in tune with using the style of, say, Taekwondo and Capoeira and Hapkido.
You know, she just inhabits that thing, which is she's tough for real. She has a vulnerability where you really care about her. She's just got dimensions.
Well, we're meeting Selena very early on in terms of her journey as Catwoman. She's working at the Iceberg Lounge at 40 Below, and she's working there because her father owns the club, and he doesn't know that she's his daughter, so she's kind of undercover.
We're just rounding ourselves. Want to drop?
Oh, no, I'm good. But you enjoy.
I think that my interest in her character, it's like someone that I can confide in and connect with, like kind of a port in a storm, weirdly. She seems like a direct, honest person.
We spent a lot of time in the beginning playing around with wigs, different lengths, shapes, colours, styles, and has actually ended up with 4 different looks from a hair and makeup perspective in this film.
And I said, you know, what I'd love to do if you want to appear in this series of wigs is I'd love to have the first wig look totally real. So that way we think, oh, this is the version of Selena Kyle. And then when Batman and Bruce follows her home, that you see her remove the wig and you see her with the Year One haircut and you realize, oh, this person is not who I thought. She's constantly putting forth someone who she is not. So who is that character? That all came from conversations with Zoe.
Selina Kyle bootstrapping her way through life in the East End of Gotham, which is a very seedy sort of representation in my mind of sort of 70s Times Square with like burlesque theater. Just a tough part of town.
I'm in awe of what they've been able to do. James is a genius, and his team, all of them. When I got to see my apartment for the first time, I lost my mind. It was just, I wanted to live there. It was so incredible, and the detail.
If the Batcave is about survival, what is the key here to Selina and Catwoman? It becomes about who she is at night, which is she's the cat burglar. As she walks through the door of her bedroom, that's the transformation. That's where she becomes Catwoman. So there's a real kick in to the set dressing there.
You can see evidence of her disguises and whips and the development of her motorcycle lock as a whip.
We're not in the Catwoman world yet. We're pre-Catwoman. The most significant comic was year one in knowing what that looked like. The ears was something that Matt was very interested in working out, and always trying to work out how incidentally to have them. And so we cut up a lot of beans and we worked out how the seaming inadvertently make ears.
Jacqueline's amazing. She's just an absolute genius, and also so collaborative, which was great because it was just so fun to be a part of the process.
Jacqueline, the costume designer, had an idea of where she wanted the catsuit to go, and I think pay homage to other catsuits, quite feminine, but you need a hardness to it as well because she's on a motorbike and she's a tough character.
There's areas that have been patched up and have different kinds of leather and scratches, and you can just tell she's worn this thing to which I love.
The villains are often, the most exciting part of the movies. I wanted to see a Batman that was not an origin tale, but was sort of in his early days. But that meant that a lot of the characters who are the Rogues Gallery characters are in their origins in a way. You can see all of the pieces and how they're going to become that.
There are criminals and there are victims of criminals. And I think Catwoman is the first person where he really struggles to think, well, you are on the bad side, and I like you.
The birth of Catwoman is on the roof when she pushes Kenzie off the roof. Batman went one way and I went the other way.
Don't throw your life away.
I've got 9 of them. He's always trying to figure Selina out, and I think the audience will be too. The idea of, you meet her one way, and then she looks another way, and then she looks another way, and it's kind of this, onion that you just keep on peeling the layers off, who is this person?
There was something very special because I could feel that this is a character that she felt a kinship with, a connection to.
Of course, the women, Eartha Kitt, Michelle Pfeiffer, Halle Berry, everybody. It's an honor to be in that group of people. I really want it to be a story about a woman who survived a hell of a life, and she's ready to raise some hell.
If we don't stand up, no one will. Come on, Vengeance. Let's get into some trouble.
What's up, GQ? I'm Zoe Kravitz. Today, I'm going undercover on the internet. It's actually me. Okay, let's check Twitter. Zoe Kravitz was Mary Jane in Into the Spider-Verse? I was. I voiced Mary Jane. Chris and Phil are friends of mine, and they called me up and asked me if I would do the voice. It was such a fun project to be a part of, and the movie is so amazing. So, yeah, fun little fact. I love doing animated voiceover work. I would like to do more. I think it's such an amazing art form, and it's just crazy to see what they can do now and bring something to life through voice. It's cool. When is Big Little Lies coming back on? Quit playing with me. I know. I don't think it is. We talked about doing a season 3 a lot, and unfortunately, Jean-Marc Vallée, our incredible director, passed away this last year, which is heartbreaking, and I just can't imagine going on without him. He really was the visionary for that show. So, unfortunately, it's done. Next, Carrie Bradshaw. Zoe as Carrie is probably my favorite fan cast I thought of. Well, thanks. I mean, I'm a huge Sex and the City fan,
huge. Like, I can quote every episode. I mean, no one can play Carrie but Carrie. Only Carrie can play Carrie. Sarah Jessica Parker, you know, that's the holy grail. But I would, you know, I'd play like her friend or something. The new Samantha? No, just kidding, Samantha, I love you. Okay, I'm admittedly late to getting the chance to watch this, but Zoe Kravitz's High Fidelity remake is goddamn great. Thank you so much. Deserved a second season, and also, how many people can say they starred in a TV reboot of a movie their mom was in? That's true. My mother was in the original film, which was one of my favorite movies growing up, and thank you. I thought it was a really good show too. We had a lot of fun making it. The cast was amazing, and I think there was a lot of places for this story in the world to go, but unfortunately, Hulu did not agree, and now we are in TV heaven. But thanks for watching. Wah. Posted. Cora? Cora? What's Cora? What does Zoe Kravitz think of Robert Pattinson as Batman? Obviously think he's very good. I think he's great. I think he did incredible work. I think that he made the character his own, which is really hard to do with something that we've seen so many times before and that we've all grown up with. I think that he brought humanity to the character as well, which was really hard to do. There are so many restrictions in terms of, you know, kind of being able to emote when you're wearing that mask. You know, you can't really move that much and they can't really see your face so much, and so it's a big challenge, and I think he did an amazing job. Go Rob. Next is Zoe Kravitz singing in Big Little Lies. Yep, that's me. That's me singing. You know, I was pre-recorded, so I went to the studio and sang the song. It was really fun. It was a cool cover. We recorded that scene so many times. We did it so many times over and over again, and because my character was singing in the background of a lot of other things that were going on, I sang that song like 100 times, and I think by the end, everybody in the cast and crew, including myself, did not want to hear it anymore. So it's actually really triggering. But yeah, that was me singing. How many tattoos does Zoe Kravitz have? I don't know. Lost count, I don't know. I got my first tattoo when I was 18 because my parents wouldn't let me get one until I was 18. I've had some removed, I get some put back. I mean, I just like, it's crazy, I have no idea. I do think you should be like 35 before you can get tattoos because you get them and then you don't like them anymore. I have no idea, I have so many little ones. I feel like it's like in the 30s? 40? Replied. TikTok, where the young kids go. Oh, hello. It's a picture of me and my dad wearing matching jackets. Family full of icons. Thank you. I wonder what family dinner is like. LOL. I mean, it depends. If me and my father are eating good food together, we're only talking about the food. Like, my dad likes to give commentary, you know, it's like, oh, the chicken and then the crispiness and you have to dip it in the sauce and try it. Like, it's like we just talk about what we're eating as we're eating it because we're big foodies. Yeah, the LK food commentary is legendary. The way Zoe Kravitz gives off tall energy had me convinced that she was 5'10". What? How tall is she? Okay, well, thank you very much. I am not 5'10". I am very short. I am 5'1.5". I am a tiny person. The amount of times that I get reminded how small I am is often, you know, you like go to the airport and they're like, you are so much shorter in person. You're like, thank you for the reminder. Petite, as my mom would say. She doesn't like the word short. She always says, you're petite. So, I am petite. Posted. Wikipedia, where nothing is true. Kravitz landed her first film role while in high school, playing a babysitter hired by Catherine Zeta-Jones' character in 2007 romantic comedy No Reservations. That is true. That was my first job. And I played a gothic babysitter. When I went to the audition, I went in full goth makeup, which is why I think I got that part. I was committed. All I did really, acting, you know, when I was in school, I was kind of an average student and I was in drama club, and that was always where I had the most fun and made the most friends, and it was just where I felt comfortable, and I never really thought about doing it as a career until high school ended, and it was just the only thing that I had ever really done, so I just kind of kept it going. Kravitz is set to make her directorial debut with Pussy Island, which she also co-wrote and co-produced. That is true. I directed the film this summer. I'm in post now, I'm editing, and it was a very wild ride. It's really crazy how actors have no idea what it takes to make a film. I've been on hundreds of film sets, and I just now learned what it takes to make a movie. So it was a great learning experience for me. Wish me luck, you guys. Okay, Reddit. So obsessed with Reese Witherspoon's piece on Zoe Kravitz with the Time 100. Must have been such an incredible feeling to be chosen. Yes, it was. And to have Reese do the write-up. Yeah, crazy that I was in the Time 100. Quite an honor. And to have someone as incredible as Reese and someone that's as important to me as Reese write such a wonderful, touching piece, that was amazing. It made me cry when I read it. So thank you, Reese, I love you. It was amazing working with Reese. I'd met her before, and I'd been a fan of hers. And she's so quick and so funny and so involved, you know, in front of the camera, behind the camera. It was really a huge inspiration to see a woman like her be so involved in the business side and the producing side too. So I was really inspired by that. And on a personal note, just Reese has become one of my dearest friends and someone I can really, you know, rely on and turn to. She's just a very important person in my life, and I'm very thankful to know her. How would you describe Zoe Kravitz's style? I want to get some new stuff for fall, and I really like the way Zoe dresses. How would you describe it? What store should I try? I mean, I really try and dress comfortably. It's really important that you feel comfortable in what you're wearing, because I think that you can feel and see when someone isn't comfortable in their clothes, and then no matter how cool looking it is, it kind of strips all that away. I also live in New York, so I walk around a lot, and I just think comfort is really important. I like oversized clothes a lot. I wear a lot of black, and I'm really into basics. I really like jeans and white t-shirts and, you know, like big chunky sweaters, but I also just like to get up and go. I don't like to think about it too much when I wake up in the morning, so basics are good. Next, Instagram. Hello, old friend. Just watched. This was empowering as hell for anxious introverts facing their fears. Beautifully done. Thank you. I really loved this film. You handled agoraphobia so well, and I loved how subtle everything was portrayed and shot. Well done. Thank you. Well, Steven Soderbergh, the director, is obviously a master, so that's part of the reason the movie is so good. I know a lot of people suffer from social anxiety in general, but then after the pandemic, I think that was heightened for a lot of people. I connected to the character Angela a lot. I suffer from anxiety as well, so panic attacks are something I'm quite familiar with. So I was, able to kind of draw from my own experience to play the character. This is a picture from our first day on Pussy Island. What directors inspire you the most? Obviously, I can't think of any right now because that's what happens when you're asked a question like that. I love Tarantino, I love Adrian Lyne, I love Fellini, I love so many directors. I just can't think of any of them right now. But I am a huge cinephile. Yeah, well, I wasn't allowed to, I didn't have television when I was a kid. My mom didn't allow me to watch TV, but I was allowed to watch one movie a weekend, and so I would kind of get obsessed with films. I love the Coen brothers. I love dark films, dark comedies, my favorite. Picture from the Batman premiere. You must redo Breakfast at Tiffany's. That would be a really hard thing to redo. I just think that when something is done so iconically and perfectly, it's like, why touch it? But thank you. That'd be fun, in theory. I don't think I have the balls to do that. Ooh, YouTube, okay, I know what that is. Bro, why do I want to do this voice? Bro, she is so funny. No, that's me, sorry. Bro, she is so funny. She could be a cast member. Aw, thanks. I would love to see her do more comedy. I would love to do more comedy. I had so much fun hosting SNL. It was a dream of mine. Obviously, comedy is something I have not done a lot of, and I think I could be pretty funny. I would love that. So anybody who has any great comedy scripts or sketch ideas, you just hit me and I'll come do that. This song just popped up in my head. Never watched the video though. This is some great wordplay, and I don't even listen to Jay like that. Oh, ain't that Zoe Kravitz? Yes, this is me in a Jay-Z video called I Know. I don't even know when this was shot, how many years ago. 2011. Olden days, y'all, olden days. Yeah, I knew the director of this video and they asked me to do it. Why would I say no? It's like me walking around New York City and stuff. I haven't seen it in a long time either. I don't really remember the premise. Yeah, I mean, it was an honor and a privilege to be in a Jay-Z video, obviously. Okay, that's it. I'm signing off the internet. Bye.